And we're live, baby.
Here we go.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? We are live tonight with Matt from JL Audio.
Hi, everybody.
I don't remember his technical label. Applications
Master.
of technical training.
Something like that. Yep. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah,
Man, you got a fancy setup going on there. It's almost like you do this sometimes.
Just about once a week.
Okay.
Similar to what you guys do. So.
Yeah, they do. I think it's on Thursdays. They do a live video. Most Thursdays, like a live training video on something about normally Tune or the JL Max device or something like that.
Nice.
Anything from product training to technical subjects, whatever really is, desired at the time.
Where do you do that? Like on Facebook, YouTube, kind of like how we're doing, or?
Yep. So we broadcast it on Facebook, and then eventually it gets added to YouTube.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Really, we can just go and watch training videos from you on YouTube, just anywhere.
You can watch hours and hours of training.
The Tune and Max playlist specifically, I think, is like 26 videos or so, each, just over an hour long. And then tons of other videos from before I was even part of the training team on YouTube, which have everything from single specific topics, like what is a decibel, and then, all the way up to, mocking up a fake car in a room and like testing locations, and all the way to tuning a full system or tuning a home system. I mean, we've kind of been all around. So
and it's not just surface level, because they have the guy who created the Max, Nick Ames. They have him on there sometimes, and he is incredibly intelligent, and he will gladly go over your head with what he's saying. And he won't even attempt to dumb it down. If you can't keep up, then you better rewatch it. I was flying. I might have been flying to go see you, Bobby, or I was going somewhere. I had very, very little sleep. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna download these videos. I'm gonna watch them. And I'd done this before, but this time I get on the flight. I make it 30 seconds into the video called "Working with Phase," where Nick starts talking. I just close the iPad and go, "No, bro, not today." I couldn't do it.
Nick's an incredibly intelligent engineer. I think his title with us is senior electroacoustic specialist, and he works on all kinds of stuff. But he focuses a lot on DSP related items and electronics and acoustic testing and development and stuff like that. And he speaks engineer. So, I mean, anytime you talk to Nick, you have to kind of break it down to take what he's saying and then make it something that anybody can understand. So hopefully that's what I help to do.
How long have you been with JL, Matt?
So I just hit my 5-year point, I think September. So I actually started in 2017. So long story short, I worked for a dealer in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, and I flew out to Knowledge Fest, Indianapolis. And I did that on my own dime. I was eager to learn and just grow in the industry. The shop I worked at was okay, but we didn't do any type of really high-end work. So I wanted to really grow and learn more. So I went to Knowledge Fest to get a better education there. And I had already known some of the JL guys like Eric Cole and Steve Teresi because he was a trainer. And, there's other people that I was friendly with. And while I was there, I got to go hang out with them, go to the bar afterwards, just hang out and chit chat. A couple weeks later, Eric Cole sent me a message and said, "Hey, there's a job opening in research and development. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I was like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah.
I bought my first JL equipment when I was 14 years old on eBay. I was a huge JL nerd at the time. And so I ended up going to work for research and development. I moved to Florida, and I was there in that department for about 4 years. We did everything from developing stealth boxes to basically I learned how to tune there, how to work with acoustic measurement equipment, and understand what happens in acoustically. I learned all kinds of stuff there, from fabrication to tuning to wiring.
Yeah, that must have been a lot of fun.
It was really, I mean, there was a lot of information. It's one of those things that, like, every single thing wasn't necessarily hard, but it was just a lot of information. So I had to learn how to do this and how to do that, and how to build a stealth box start to finish. And it was really an incredible experience. And the one thing that I did not like while I was in R&D was that I had to keep quiet about all the cool stuff that I got to work on. Right. And for 4 years, I went from being a dealer posting on social media to, like, I couldn't say anything. So when this opportunity came up to work in the training department with Steve, I kind of jumped on that, and there were some other perks that came along with it too. But it's been incredible working with Steve and being able to share what I know with everybody else has been really a humbling experience. And I love it. I wouldn't change anything.
That Steve dude knows a thing or two.
Yeah, he's all right. No, Steve, he's been with the company for almost 30 years now.
It's 1990.
Wow. Yeah. And I don't know when his technical start date was. It's kind of confusing the way they do it, because Steve actually worked for a company called Speaker Warehouse before JL Audio was before it was as big as it is today. It was relatively small, and JL Audio had another business called Speaker Warehouse, where they did, like, the car builds for the sound quality competitions, and they sold the JL Audio equipment through that store. So Steve actually worked at that store for a while. He moved to go work for JL Audio. And I mean, Steve's had many hats over the years that he's worn. He's been in sales, he's been in technical, and now he's the VP of technical services. And
what does that even do?
Huh?
What does that mean for people who've never been in such a corporation?
VP of technical services.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to ask Steve, here's what he would say: it doesn't matter. It's just a title. He's
fair enough.
His job is to wear a whole bunch of different hats. Mainly, he's very training focused, and he wants to get people in seats and teach them everything that he can tell them. And he also does other things, like he develops tune software. He works all throughout the company to help plan big business decisions. And I mean, he's been with the company so long that obviously he's got a lot of seniority. And but like I said, if you were to ask him, the title doesn't mean anything. It's just a title. And Steve's a super awesome guy. If you ever have the chance to go sit in on one of his trainings, or just chat with him, he's great.
Oh no, yes, getting to spend the other weekend with him a bunch was awesome. 10 out of 10.
One of my first big system was JL subs, JL W3s, when they first came out back in 97-ish. Does that sound right? 98.
So that's hard for me. I was born in 92. So
okay,
so from 90 to 2000,
you're a youngin'. Okay, so my first big system with W3s, and that kind of lead me into this next question is, it was you guys, Kicker, Fosgate, back in the day still are the big dogs, but there weren't a ton of options back then either. There was, there wasn't so many brands as there are now, as far as like our community. And our community is growing super fast because of social media and the whole demo crowd, and the younger generation is kind of getting into that. Does JL have any plans on getting back into the SPL side or high output side of things? Any of that get tossed around ever? Just curious. we might see another.
To be honest, I don't generally hear much about the SPL side. What I think we focus on a lot, which affects both SPL and SQ, is how to achieve good sound and how to get speakers to work together in a given environment. As far as like building big woofers or anything like that, I don't think it's something that the company is interested in. And it's not because they don't like it. Obviously, there's lots of people at JL Audio that love big bass, but
of course,
the generally speaking, a couple 13W7s takes care of most people at JL Audio, and they
I mean, a couple 13W7s would take care of a lot of my bass needs too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
As far as real big bass, I don't think that's something we'll get back into. But as far as getting big bass to be even better, using DSP to really align speakers and get them to work together in an environment, get the most output from any system, that's definitely something we're interested in. So
yeah, Matt is who I've learned a large majority of what I know about the Max. I've learned most of it from him at this point.
Well, thank you.
Dude is a treasure trove of information.
Hey, how soon do you expect to have those available again? The Max. I want to buy one.
I believe they are in stock.
Really?
Yes. So I don't know who you will talk to get one, but talk to somebody and you can probably get one. I think we have a good amount available at this point.
Oh, great. I have a local dealer that when I'm doing JL stuff, I'll haul my customer right over there and just have him get his JL stuff from my local dealer. He buys my boxes. He, supports me with other things. So, and I'm not trying to have him be a trans-shipper. So it's not like I'm trying to buy it and make a buck. I just take my customer over there. I just send him over there, buy this, that, and the other thing. And maybe I can purchase it from him. And
absolutely.
I bought mine from a dealer.
Yeah, I think that seems like. And then what's really cool is now meeting you and having Drew, I have an in on being trained on how to operate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Drew mentioned earlier, we have tons of videos on like specific topics. So like if you were like, okay, I just want to learn more about this one thing, like using how to look at an impulse response and align it with other speakers. Like we have a training just on aligning impulse response. And then we have a training just on phase. We actually have 2 trainings on phase, the one Drew referenced earlier. So there's tons of very specific topics. And then, some that are more of an overview of like the whole process or whatever.
Very cool.
And even though I constantly doubt my abilities in SQ and tuning and the Max in general, I do have a fairly decent grasp on how to use it at this point. Even though I feel like I don't. People keep telling me I do.
Drew is modest. He's actually very good at using it. I've seen him in action, and the good news is that he is modest. That tells you that he's
open to learning more. But I mean,
nothing. The more you learn with something that powerful, the more you're going to know that you don't know.
Which is
so the smarter you get in regards to it, the dumber you're going to feel.
It's like using Photoshop.
Yeah, just the more you figure out how to do basic stuff, you're like, wow, this can do so much more that I don't know how to do. That and then like I was telling him, him, my Jeffrey, and then Scott in the chat. That's who I talk to every day who do the Mac stuff, and they're all like super high level. Like, obviously, Matt's been working with it since before it. Most everybody. So
they better be right. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how to do that shit. You're like, oh, what the fuck, man. You're like,
I'm comparing myself to super high level guys daily.
Well, you're learning from the best, so that's good stuff. Shit, you're skipping a lot of the curve.
What's crazy is how much Matt looks like the homie Mike Del Monte from my area. You look pretty similar
like
to the point where when we posted the picture that there was people like Mike Del Monte, huh? And I was like, oh no, it's not. It's some other guy.
I've never heard of him.
Named Matt. Okay, whatever. But yeah.
Hey, West Coast homie. Comes to a lot of the West Coast shows.
So, Ron, so next time I get to mess with your truck, I'm gonna be even better at it. Like, it's the same thing with the Raiden truck that I tuned for Bob. He's like, I'd had the max like a month or two at that point, and now I already know way more. I can already make it better.
Every time I bring that truck out, Drew, people listen to it, and they're like, "This is the best sounding, loudest, like demo build I've ever heard. It's amazing." And I'm like, it's not that loud, but it sounds really, really good. And I believe you. I understand that you were in the infancy of training. Now you're like a toddler of tuning,
but
right?
That truck is the reason.
You know,
I decided I have to go 3-way in my Tahoe because that truck is just so good in every way. Oh,
they say it's not gay if it's in a 3-way.
I think it's important to mention just so people understand, like JL didn't invent this technology. Like this is not something we came up with. The type of technology that we use, it's called dual FFT technology. So it stands for dual fast Fourier transform. You guys have probably heard it like a regular FFT. It's dual FFT. So we can measure two signals relative to each other. This technology's been around since like the early 90s. I think originally JBL had something to do with it.
I'm sure JBL Harman Group had something to do with it.
Yes.
There's no way they didn't.
At one point they owned so there's this. All right, so long story short, there's this program called SMART, right? And it allows you to look at these time domain based measurements and dual FFT stuff, and that currently is owned by a company called Rational Acoustics. We used SMART before we developed Max, and SMART is a tool that is used all over the world for pro audio. So like real venues, concert halls, movie theaters, like that's what they're using to tune these big venues. So the technology's been there for years and years and years. It's just that nobody has adopted it and brought it into the mobile home marine audio world. Like no one's ever adopted it. So, this guy, Nick, that Drew was talking about, Nick basically worked at a place in Portland, Oregon. He worked at Stereo King. And I guess he happened to be friends with one of our engineers named Ryan. And Ryan came back and said, you guys got to come meet this guy, Nick. He's brilliant. So at some point they were all out in Portland and they went and they met Nick and they saw what Nick was doing with all this tuning gear. He had a big tuning cart. He had like 4 monitors with, all the wires and inputs and outputs and sound cards. And you just imagine what Nick's tuning cart would look like. That I'll find a picture so I can share it.
That sounds super fun. Now I want to build one.
Yeah, well,
I mean, most people who have a Max end up with a big, like Jeffrey has a 55-inch TV on this tuning cart that he rolls around. So that way he can really see everything that's going on.
Damn, we just came up on a 55-inch TV last week.
Yeah, you did.
I was telling you guys $100, man. That thing is awesome.
Yeah. But before you show us that pic, I don't want to get us too sidetracked, but you touched on home audio. So because we're all car audio guys, so this Max is used a lot to tune home audio systems.
Max can be used to tune anything. So Smart is I think it's also a 5 microarray system.
No, Smart is just software. You have to buy your own sound card and hardware and mics. That's all up to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but with the Max, like you said, you could tune anything. So, I mean, how often is it used to tune home audio? I guess is my question.
Well,
is it a common thing, or is it something you guys are maybe trying?
If home audio guys have it, then yeah. But what I would say is Max is an audio measurement system. It doesn't care where the audio comes from. It's just measuring signal.
Drew, that's where the big money's at, dude. Home audio is expensive.
Oh, dude, I know home audio and marine audio.
People's home audio
are
dude, charge them like $1,000 to tune their home audio. They'd be like, hell yeah, come on in, dude.
They're like $1,000. Tune it twice.
Yeah, they're like, let me see what it sounds like. Maybe 2,000.
Yeah, this one you didn't charge.
We could probably build some really cool looking towers if we knew somebody that was good at building big ass speaker boxes. Be kind of fun.
I wish we knew somebody.
Well, we know somebody that not just you, but how about this towers that Nolte builds?
Yeah, John's the dude. He's pretty amazing.
I gotta get to hear his stuff one of these times. I need to hear those.
That dude is working so hard right now. I'm so proud of him. John Nolte is absolutely killing it. He's started his own business. They're manufacturing many of the complex components for these MRI machines that are a new technology that he's helped develop over the last like 5 years. And awesome. He's doing so good. I'm so proud of him. But I mean, I don't get to see him. He's like working like night and day. Every once in a while he calls. He's like, I was taking a little break. I walked outside. I thought I'd call you. You're the only person I talked to. And I've been working for 19 hours. I'm like, good boy. Keep doing that. So
go take a nap, bro.
He gets his naps. He probably like counts his sleep time somewhere in there. But
timer in his head.
He's like, yeah, he just dips out for a second at his desk or something. But he's doing really good. So
you want me to add that to stream?
There you go. So that was Nick's tuning car.
Wow,
so, man, that looks fun.
It does look cool.
I mean, you can tell he was an engineer though, because like nothing is like totally organized. It's just he used it every day, you know, depending on what he was doing. So what you see here is he has a smart on the main interface there. He's got some other programs that generate target curves on the right-hand side. Looks like maybe another measurement program on the screen as well, and something else over here. So like when Nick was doing this stuff, it was like multiple programs, multiple softwares, multiple pieces of hardware to make everything work together. And it was just a lot. Like this is why most people haven't, you know, adopted this technology, just because it requires a lot of money investment as well as knowledge about how the stuff works.
I mean, but the Max does all that shit, right?
Yeah. So basically, we hired Nick.
Sold.
Yep, we hired him. And it was a funny story about that. He came into the main headquarters in Miramar, Florida, and he all the big players in the company were like, okay, we're gonna show up, we're gonna watch Nick tune some cars, like 3 different cars, and we're gonna take notes on what he does. So he goes through the first tune and he tunes the car, and they're taking notes as he's going through it. And then the second tune, he starts going through a different car and he's doing different things. And Steve says, hey, Nick, on the first car, you did this, this, and this, but now on this car, you did something different. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's what Nick said. It doesn't matter. And Steve was just like, what?
Definitely the engineer.
It doesn't matter. Everything matters. So, you know, what we learned is that there's no one way to tune a car or, you know, whatever it is. There's no one right way. There's many ways to get to the same end result. That's why when we tune, we don't tell you that follow this process. We have a process that we recommend. However, you know, it's just a process. It's not the only process. You can do it however you'd like. So for example, Drew and I tune the same way. Our buddy Jeffrey tunes totally different than us. However, he has great results at the end, and that's what matters. So just like producer, yeah.
So the Max, you know, so it can do all the things that like I've shown, you know, the RTA and all that stuff, but it can do so much more. So it has a pair of XLR inputs, a TRS input, all kind of physical inputs where you can read signal, you can read speaker, if like parameters, you name it, it can do it. Yeah, those 2 plugs on the left.
So we got XLR 1 and 2, all the mic inputs, a reference input for RCA. On the other side, we have our test signal output. We have a headphone jack and impedance measurement port, optical input and output, a USB hub to plug DSPs into to communicate with the computer. Obviously, the computer port. We have a ground in case there's any noise that ever showed up in your measured data. You could ground it to the vehicle, get rid of noise. So
nice.
The Max was really, you know, multi-year. Like once Nick came in, we saw how well using dual FFT worked to get incredible bass and mid bass performance. You know, we instantly were in, and decided
JL
we're going
said,
to develop this product.
Here's a check. There's no limit. There's no number on it. So you just fill that out and let us know when you're done. And then JL went, help me.
Yeah, so
this is kind of more of a question for Matt, and I guess Drew, you probably know, but what is the average cost to get your system tuned by somebody who actually knows what they're doing?
Seems to be like the average rate's $400.
$400.
Yeah, how much time do they usually spend doing it?
It depends.
So
I can tune my truck, which is all VXI, so GLs and proprietary amplifiers with the same software the Max uses. Like they integrate. I can go from no tune to top quality tune. I mean, top level, 30 minutes flat.
How
long? That's slow. 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
And that's slow.
Cut out and it's all flat.
No, 30 minutes flat.
What?
Exactly.
So
but if you're having to use like other DSPs, it can be a little bit more prolonged.
So
if you have to figure out like some weird shit that's in the install, and you're just like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and fix this shit, then
yeah. I think it's important to mention it totally depends on the tool that they're using, right? If they don't have access to a Max measurement system, if they're using some other type of measurement system, it's hard to say because there's many, many different tuning methods out there. Some people you'll talk to and they say it takes them days to tune. And, our goal with Max was to give you professional, consistent, efficient results, in a reasonable amount of time and not take days to tune a car. And this Max doesn't tune a car for you. It only gets you to the point where you can get in and listen to it to make buyer adjustments. So it does all of the you go through and do all of the objective measurements, like the 2 + 2 is 4 kind of stuff. And then when you get in the car, you should be 90% there. And then it's just small adjustments to taste. So,
and I tell you, the Max is just a tool because you can easily make it sound awful and think you've done a good job. Like, especially when you're brand new at it. The first couple of times I tuned my truck by myself, I'd get in, play one note of one song and be like, "No, that's not it," and just get right out. So yeah, it took me 4 hours to tune Rhonda. But Rhonda had 2 DSPs, one per side of the vehicle. So that was an interesting challenge for sure.
Yeah, I think a good thing if you're going to a shop to have it tuned, ask a lot of questions like, are you using a target curve? What kind of measurement system do you use? Those questions are very important to make sure that they actually understand what needs to happen to align the speakers. But other than that, yeah, I think Drew's probably in the right ballpark, around $400. Somewhere around
that's
there.
Because I got that number because that's what Jeffrey was charging, and that's what Scott was charging, and that just seemed to be, it's not 175 a channel like some people, but
right. And the other thing that you have to consider is like I
got fucking 14 channels in my truck.
That's what you charge Gately. 150 channel. That's on Gately price level.
Yeah, I think another thing you have
75 a channel. I got 14 channels in my fucking Ford.
Oh hell,
that's unreasonable.
That is definitely.
Fuck you.
Delete.
No, the audio control. So I saw Thaddeus said the more he messes with it, the worse he gets. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Like I would rather use that than some of this other stuff I've used. But I would at this point. I'm pretty. Jeffrey told me a long time ago that I should just stick to learning 2 or 3 DSP software as best I can and just only tune those. So obviously JL because it's easy. Helix is it Helix? Yes, Helix. Helix is easy. It's Moscone. And then
we've been doing a Helix this week at the shop, and the guys are like, "What the fuck is that?" And it's like, "What is digital output? What's the difference between master and digital output?" I'm like, "Look that shit up." I'm like, I bet it's like voltage or something. And sure as shit, it's like you can turn up the base voltage of I don't know how to explain it. But they were trying to explain it to me today, and I was like, but the Helix was like very foreign to Colt and Tyson. And I'm like, listen, if I have to go over there and figure all that shit out, that sucks real bad. So you guys need to sort that shit out. And you know, like this part of your installs on me for the customer, because you guys need to learn to work with whatever DSP we hit you with, you know,
which is a struggle because some of them can be so different from each other. So you just have
the
to get a
Moscone
lot
was like
of
really
time.
weird at first. And I was tuning that Moscone at SEMA during SEMA in Post Malone's truck. And I'm like, dude. I'm like calling, text, well, hi, how's it going? Like, the guy's like, hey, yeah, what can I do? And I'm like, listen, man. I'm like, I don't like be like Mr. Name Drop, but this is who I am. And this is what vehicle I'm in, and this is where I'm at. And
you know what? I am name dropping. I'm in Post Malone's truck at SEMA.
There is a line of like 24 people that want to hear this thing, and it sounds like shit. You need to help me fix this thing real bad. So, but God, I wish I could remember his name. I even asked him his name twice to make sure I remembered it, and I forgot the fuck.
Dude, you had a lot going on, dude.
Awesome. The Moscone tech support guy that answered me when I was at SEMA, he was fucking awesome.
I want to say it was a Moscone that Taylor had in his car that tuned before finals, and the software made sense for the most part. No, actually, it was Helix. It wasn't Moscone because I have a Helix and the Nitro, and it makes sense to me. And like the only thing I didn't like about the audio control software was I couldn't figure out how to mute individual channels for like 45 minutes, and it really pissed me off.
And once you find it, it's like it's right there, but it's not as obvious as it should be. It's a little counterintuitive. It was like they went, hey guys, we forgot to put a mute, and they were like, just put the button right there. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, that's a blank spot, but that blank spot should be a blank spot. Or it should be lit up red when it's not muted or something. So it's like, because that's one of the things you want to mute and unmute, mute and unmute, mute and unmute. And you're like, fucking.
Which was, because I need to mute, mute and play individual channels.
Right.
So like Scott, and then this is one thing Scott mentioned that I want to bring back up. If you tune the same basic vehicle a lot, like say Jeffrey at MTI, they do a lot of F-150s and Ford Series trucks. This dude can just look at an install and be like, hey, that's going to do this, that's going to do this, that's going to do this. He doesn't even need to put the max in. He just knows where it needs to go. But if you're not that experienced, you can just look at the max, look at the phase, and go, oh, no, you got a problem right there. I can see it. Need to check something over there. And you can diagnose things super fast. One of the most
powerful things, it's not even necessarily phase. Like, that's even like, that's great. But, like, it's even simpler. With Tune, you can capture traces. So it's really simple. Turn one channel off, play your subs, capture the subs response. Play your mid bass, capture the mid bass response. Now play them together. If there's a phase issue, there's going to be a problem in that area. If there's no phase issue, you'll have good summation. It's so simple. Like, you just compare one speaker to another and play them together. So, and with, having the five mics is obviously great because it eliminates the possibility of like single position anomalies that like would happen at a single point in space, but won't happen across a space this large. Like if you take a single microphone, you'll see a lot of comb filtering kind of, where you have a lot of dips and peaks in a response when you're measuring a speaker. But then when you have multiple mics, or if you wave your mic in an average of an area, it will get rid of the stuff that only happens when it's, stationary. So that's what's so powerful about having the multiple mics is really just getting the ability to hide the stuff that's not real, because the human hearing system, we have 2 ears, so we don't hear like a single microphone. So having the average is very important.
Yeah.
El Fuego, pro tip: calibrate your expectations to your budget with car audio. I'm not even sure it's that. I feel you need to a little bit, but with proper tuning, and it just takes some time to learn even how to do it yourself. You can make some big improvements to your system no matter what you have.
I think tuning.
If you budget in for tune, like let's say somebody was like, I want to spend $5,000 on my audio system, and as a shop owner, I sell them $5,000 worth of product and install. If I would have sold them $4,000 worth and had $500 or $1,000 worth of time to tune it, everybody would be better off. He's less likely to blow up equipment. It's going to sound better. Everybody's going to love it when they hear it. People are going to be blown away. And that's
Scott will be able to give some insight into that.
I mean,
he runs a shop in Kansas, and they do
it
a
does.
bunch of tuning.
It makes a humongous difference when you properly tune a vehicle. I mean, just the everyday car audio guy, we don't do that. We just put our systems in, dial in some crossovers, listen to it. We think it sounds good, but when you actually tune it, the difference in output and sound is so incredible that it's 100% worth it. And if everybody did it, I mean, it'd be a whole new level. Like,
I just want to start with getting people to install their door speakers properly. That'd be step one. Don't just sheetrock screw them to the metal. Come on, we can do better.
So we got that Jeep that we did all that crazy sound deadening on fired up, and let me tell you that the Sundown sound deadening material is astounding. It is. I was extremely confident that it was going to be amazing, and it's far better than I expected. And this thing's got a Salt 8 on 2 Nightshade 15s, 8 cubic foot box after all displacements. It's a monster. Box is bolted to the truck. It's got the plywood laminate roof, but it's got the Sundown material between the wood planks, outside of the door skins, inside of the doors, just everywhere we could. The whole floor of the truck. I mean, it's got like
that must have been such a pain in the ass.
I mean, like, here's the good news: we got paid hourly to do this. Had 3 technicians on it at the same time, and everybody's just working real hard. My guys are amazing. They just work. They're fucking great, and they don't fuck anything up. And if they do, they're like, I ordered the part that I broke, the clip. I lost one, and I ordered it, and it's on its way, and they'll drop it off. But we didn't have any of that issue with the Jeep, and they, they tuned that Helix DSP, and they were fiddling with it for hours, and like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And Colt read somewhere, I don't know where the fuck he got it, but they were like playing white noise instead of pink noise. And I don't know what the fucking difference is. And I didn't really know. And I was like, where did you get that? And he's like, I was like, you're playing pink noise. I'm like, yeah, cool. And pink noise, you got a good pink noise file? I'll send it to you on. And he's like, oh, white noise. And I'm like, pink. I don't know what the fucking difference is, but pink is what you want, buddy. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, where did you get white noise? He's like, I was looking up something and like on this video, and I'm all, you got sidetracked on some weird shit. And I don't know if that's cool or not, or a good idea, but I know pink noise is what we're supposed to be playing. Anyway,
so white noise is all frequencies are even, flat, 100% same output. Pink noise is attenuated towards the top end to account for human hearing sensitivity.
It's equal energy per octave.
Equal energy, that's what it is.
Equal energy per octave versus equal energy per frequency. Does that make sense?
It kind of. What difference does that make to me?
I'll show you actually. If I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Show that. Learn me something awesome. So anyway, and we got a big 4-channel. We're running some Focal speakers, but we did all of the sound deadening treatment you could possibly do, and this thing sounds beautiful, and it's loud. It is hammered, and the truck is hard. I was worried this thing was going to be ripping metal and throwing the tailgate on the ground. Solid.
I've been telling people about the
material is so solid. Like,
it is not easy to put on. It is not easy or fun to put on. If you're getting paid, it's pretty fun. I don't know. You know what's crazy is that if I find myself doing anything in the install bay, I am having the time of my life.
Did you have to blowtorch it all in there? Just
yeah. So our trick to it, right? And I showed a little video. Is we put it on the cold concrete with the sticky side up, and we torched the shit out of it there. And what this did is the cold concrete kept that outside membrane cool enough that we could scoop it up and stick it in place and then roll it out a little bit. And then we would heat it up a whole bunch more to where we could see it gush with the roller. And I mean, the guys had a pretty awesome flow pattern with it. They would torch it just the right amount to where they could grab the razor blade and go and cut it and pull a piece off. They would draw a Sharpie line on it. And they'd heat it up with the torch along that line, and they'd just cut it, and they'd have their piece shaped just so. They'd peel that shit off. They throw it on the concrete. it was pretty cool watching the guys.
We got 10 full sheets to start with for the nitro B pillar forward.
We used 13. B pillar forward is good. We used 13 sheets in the Jeep
of the 43 by 30 whatever.
43 by 37, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got
and we used like
B-pillar,
we used like a little over 8 sheets in the mega cab. So we started out with a stack of that shit like this thick, and now it's like this. And I think I'm gonna put the rest of it in my Sprinter van.
Dude, that stuff is so wild. So what we got, Matt?
Yeah, what are we looking at here?
All right, so
learn us.
You guys are familiar
with that's flat, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
It is. So
you're hella good at tuning. You're the best.
Boy, about to win the RTA class, 100%.
All right, so you guys are familiar with an RTA, right? So
yes, sir.
The x-axis represents frequency, the y-axis is amplitude, right? So an RTA is different than a spectrum analyzer. The difference is that an RTA is banded more like how the human hearing system works. So when you play pink noise on an RTA, it's flat. And if we were to listen to this, it sounds relatively flat to us. If you were to change it to white noise on an RTA, this is what happens. It's more energy at higher frequencies because there's more frequency. So it's equal energy per frequency, right? Versus equal energy per octave. So meaning 1 to 2K has the same amount of energy as 5 to 10K, right? Each doubling or halving of a frequency range is an octave. So each octave is the same. So if you were to look at a spectrum analyzer, which would basically just be turn banding off on the RTA. So it's no longer banded data like the way humans hear. And pink noise actually ramps downward because the spectrum analyzer isn't banded. It's just analyzing whatever that signal is. So when you're looking at an RTA, pink noise is the right choice of sound to signal, stimulus, whatever you want to call it, to use. If you're using white noise on a spectrum analyzer, that'll show up flat. But when banding is engaged and you're looking at an RTA, which is how we recommend to tune because the RTA is banded the way humans hear. So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that was great, Matt. Hey, real quick.
Shoot.
Why would anybody use white noise?
I mean, maybe there's times where you're measuring electronics directly. I wouldn't use it for acoustic measurements per se, but there's plenty of times where you might use it for other things. I know people use white noise to sleep with, like they turn it on.
If you want to measure an amplifier's output, you would use white to make sure everything's playing.
Again, if you're using a spectrum analyzer, then use white noise. But if you're using an RTA, use pink noise. That's the easiest way I could put it. Like if your only tool that you had was some sort of FFT that didn't have banding, then you should use white noise.
I see. So maybe somewhere along the way, Colt stumbled across something that was tuning that way. And they were like, and pick your white noise and blah, blah, blah. And he watched enough of it to just catch that information. And then when he was actually doing the tune, his brain heard white noise somewhere along the way. And next thing you know, we're tuning it to where those 6.5s in the doors of that thing were pounding.
Yeah.
I was like, the highs. I mean, these are focals, man. And it seems like the tweeters are like really low and mid, like, 2,000, 2,500's like kind of like a little hot-ish, but anyway, so yeah.
Just so you know, everything I just did in tune, you can do that yourself for free. You don't need to pay JL Audio anything to use tune, to connect a source like your computer and start measuring right away without paying us a dime. So,
Matt, something I wanted to ask you. We ask all of our guess is how did you get into car audio? Is there anything specific point that you really remember, or were you just always kind of in the music, or just why you got into this crazy shit?
When I grew up, my brother and my brother-in-law used to be really good friends, and my brother-in-law worked at Tweeter. I don't know if you guys remember Tweeter. It was like a home. It was like a home audio company. They did home audio, car audio. It was like a Best Buy or Circuit City before Best Buy, got bigger and Circuit City went out of business. Tweeter was like a more specialized Best Buy, if you will. And he worked there, and my brother had a Honda Civic, and when this happened, I was probably 8 to 12 years old. He had a 98 Honda Civic with some nice rims on it.
Who didn't?
And he had some Boston acoustic speakers with a pair of JL W3s that were in a really cool enclosure that had the Honda logo lit up with plexiglass. And every time I got in that car when I was young, I thought it was the coolest thing. And having the bass in there, it was so it made me feel like I was in the coolest car on the road. And then as I continued getting older, my brother-in-law, he actually left Tweeter at a point before they went out of business, and he opened his own company, and he does home audio. So he would actually have me come out there and help him run wires, mount speakers in walls and ceilings, hook up receivers and everything home audio from, basic home theaters to 2-channel, whatever it was. So I kind of just got in there because I've been involved in it since I was pretty young. And the only thing that was different was I was into cars. My brother wasn't really big into cars, and my brother-in-law was into audio, but home audio. So I was like, well, I'm gonna get into car audio. Like that's what I want. So I started putting radios in my driveway, just like probably everyone else. And I ended up going to work at Best Buy. I started at Best Buy when I was 18, I think. And
working in the install bay or
I started in Car-Fi, and I was in the sales part for about 6 months. After 6 months, I got transferred into the install bay, and I was in the install bay for 6 months. I got my MECP basic certification, and I got like a $4 raise in 1 year, which was fantastic for working at Best Buy. And I was like, all right, cool, this is great. And then I got a job offer from a local shop, and I left Best Buy. I went to go work for the local shop. They specialized in tint, but they also did LEDs, remote starts, and some audio. So I went over there, and I was basically the only guy there doing electronics. So I did all the lighting, all the remote starts. I got JL back as a brand because I was partial to it, and I worked there for about 3 years, and I went to another dealer for another 2 years, and then that's when I went to Knowledge Fest, and then ended up landing the job with JL. So before JL, I was in the industry for about 6 years. And now I'm going on, almost 11, I guess.
What do you drive now? What kind of car do you have? A system? I'm guessing you have to have an SQ system and all that stuff, right? So, tell me what you got.
All right, so here, let me backtrack.
I have a 8-track. I actually don't.
Oh no!
Yeah, I don't listen to anything. I drive around with a Bluetooth speaker on my back seat, and I listen to talk radio.
So when I lived in New Jersey, a buddy of mine and I actually rented a garage. It was a 3-bay garage with a lift, and we did everything we wanted to do out of there. It was like $750 a month, and we'd split that, and any side jobs I did covered rent, and it was fantastic. And we had that for about a year and a half. And then once I landed the job at JL, I was moving to Florida, so I had to get rid of gave him the garage, and I left. And when I got to Florida, we got into an apartment, and then COVID happened, and the house market in South Florida went nuts. And at that point, I was like, well, you know what? I'm not buying a house with the market at this price, right? So I didn't have a garage to actually work out of like I did in New Jersey. And I quickly got to the point where I was like, I'm not doing any work until I get a garage, because I was spoiled and I didn't want to work outside in the heat. And, I went to work. I could do things at work a little bit, but it was sort of tricky to, do something that would take more than a couple of days, at the office. So I actually just bought a car last year. I got a Tesla Model Y, one of the reasons I picked that car was because it's a really good car for audio. It's a hatchback, so it's going to have really good bass response. It's got a super flat dash that's very symmetrical, so the left and right channels will be very, the frequency response will match very well. There's other reasons too, but it's quiet, it's electric, so there's very low noise floor to begin with. So those were all things that I wanted as I was buying a car.
Nice.
So and they're fast.
Hey, when somebody says it must be nice, you say it really fucking is, motherfucker.
It is nice.
It really is.
No, it must be real nice to have a low noise floor. I have to consult the judges at SQ events, but hey, can I start my truck at this time?
Yeah,
like, yes, we will stop judging if you just start your truck. My bad, bro. I didn't mean it like that. Shit.
I started some sound treatment a couple weeks ago, and then I had to throw the car back together because I was driving. I have a 13W7 sitting in my garage. I have a couple 8-inch mid-bass speakers sitting over here.
Have the 8-inch mid-bass speakers.
The 8-inch.
You can tell them. Sorry, you can flex on them.
Oh, here it is. He's like, oh, flex.
ZR 800s.
Old ZRs. So
apparently those are like it to have in SQ.
So, and I'm going to do C7 tweeters, mid-range and stuff like that. But it's, I still don't have a garage here that I can necessarily work out of. So right now it's just kind of like, I'm going to do one thing at a time. First thing I'm going to do is wire it. And then I'm going to, I can speak on that in a second.
Right. Anybody saying that doesn't own one and probably can't afford to own one.
Yeah,
so
they're
not very hard to add.
I hate electric cars. Those are the worst for audio too.
Oh, Bobby, do you have pictures of the guy by you with the Tesla?
Eddie?
You know who I'm talking about.
I don't have any pictures of his car, but dude, his hatch fell all the way off onto the ground.
How many 10s or 8s was it?
It's 12
8s.
12 8s on a bunch of power, and he has big limitless batteries that he has in the car, like 100 amp hour lithium batteries, 12 volt.
The car is so ruined,
and it's bagged, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it lays all the way out. It's like
it's like
a whole bunch of awesome and beautiful, and then you're like, you're ruining it, and he's like, that's what I do. I love you, Eddie. I love Eddie.
Well, I know. I've heard the stock systems in the Ys, and they sound really good. So I could just imagine.
It's one of the better sound systems that I've heard as far as frequency response goes. I mean, imaging isn't great. I believe the center channel is mono, and it's decent because they get you an image that's kind of right in front of the driver and the passenger. So it's good for 2-seat, but for a single seat system, it's not the best stage I've heard. But I actually did take some measurements of it, and the acoustic response was actually really nice overall. You want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it now. So Blake said, audio reduces distance in a gas vehicle. That's absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
So my alternator's going to be able to turn my truck off.
Eddie, you would know that Eddie doesn't give any fucks at all, ever. Like, donut of fucks. It's like.
So, Dave,
for example, is the stock system, what you're about to show us?
Yeah, so that's driver versus passenger response.
Nice.
They're very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dave, if you want to take, for example, say a 100 kilowatt car, P100D or whatever, it's 100 kilowatts of energy. So a 1,000 watt amp playing full tilt, 1,000 watts, you play for 100 hours before you get to the battery.
And that's if you're
holding 100,000 watts, holding 1,000 watts constantly.
Yeah, but if you're demanding 100 amps, because that's the other thing, playing 1,000 watts, you're not like with music, you're not demanding anywhere near 100 amps most of the time.
So definitely not
Ali
on
just sent you pictures of Eddie's car.
Saving them right now, then I'm going to forward them to myself, and then I'll pull them up.
Yeah. So as far as the battery goes, I mean, you may see a very, very small range, depletion, but I mean, the battery, the amount of force that it takes to physically move a car is much greater than it takes to move a speaker. So if you kind of keep that in mind, it's not much.
How much power? How much power will you be running in the car? And are there any electrical? Are there any electrical changes you're making to the vehicle other than adding, a lithium or something?
So the stock system in my car uses a 12-volt AGM battery that is connected to basically a power inverter that converts 400 volts down to 12 volts, and it's got about a 2,500 watt inverter. So I can pretty much demand, I think it's about 180 amps at any given time, somewhere around there. I'm going to have a total of about 2,800 watts in the car. So I'm going to probably add a second battery with a isolator, so that whenever the car is off, the battery and the amps are totally disconnected. But once the car comes on, it will then, charge the battery and the amps. And that's just so that there's no small draw on the battery when the car's off. If the car recognizes that there's a drain on the battery when nothing's
it'll go
happening,
into limp mode, and you'll be fucking bummed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you think about it like this, because people are asking about the range and stuff, if you put you're not going to put 100,000 watt stereo on a Tesla. You're just not doing it. So you put a couple thousand watts in it, playing normal music, a mile or two per charge at most.
So this Tesla here now has a full carbon fiber wide body on it now. Wow. And it's still broken.
Is that a Y?
Yeah.
Because the X has the gull wing doors, right? That's a Y, right?
Yeah, it's a Y.
Yeah, I have that same car in white.
That's the bag system.
Cool. Oh, that's acrylic.
Yeah, those there's
acrylic around that lights up, and
that's the where's this car? How come I've never seen this car? Where's this at?
It was at the barbecue.
It was?
Yeah. It does like a 53 on music with those 12/8s on an 8K at, I think he's at 0.3 ohms. He's got two 100 amp limitless lithiums that operate it, and then when he parks it, he plugs in a little power inverter that powers it up, and it does pretty well for quite a while. But once things start to struggle a little bit, he gets a little more abusive, and then he starts breaking things, as you said.
Gotcha.
So
that makes sense. I mean, if you're going to have separate batteries basically for your audio system,
they're kind of connected, because there is a charger that charges the 12-volt side, but again, it's so compared to how much
the range is more affected by the weight.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, I think it would be.
You being in the car affects it more than the stereo will.
But that's, I mean, right. if you're not using the battery bank of the car for the audio, and you're only using this extra,
he is.
He said he's gonna have 180 amps from his.
The converter comes from that 400 volt battery.
Oh, it does. Okay, so it does take,
and then sends it to the 12 volt.
Yeah. So it's just. But Eddie got the car, and he wasn't like, yeah, it's electric and I save energy and money. And no, Eddie put all that audio in it to slow that motherfucker down so that he didn't drive it any faster. Like,
that's a problem.
I was really happy that he added all of this weight. Now, a lot of this is pretty sloppy, but at the same time, he's just pretty much constantly fucking around with it. But it sounds awesome, and it's loud as hell. And
he's got some crazy doors in there too.
They're pretty wild, but it's kind of one of these things that he gets real close to them being done, and he's like, "That's close enough for now. Let me fuck with something else for a minute." And then he circles back, and they get a little further done, or he changes his whole mind, rips it all off, and starts over again. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's a big old rear aero port. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no back seat in it now. He's not the slightest bit concerned about efficiency or keeping the car intact. He's like,
you need to sundown audio deaden that thing next.
He's got shitloads of the Amper Audio Vibraflex that is very similar. And then he also has done lots of like laminating wood into places and the 16-pound expanding foam and lots like, because he was like, there's a hole in the floor now, and I'm like, dude, and he's like, and
so see,
awesome.
Blake's got it. I want a Model X Plaid, not because of the environment. I don't care about the environment, bro. I want it because that bitch is bad.
Yeah,
I want to be the fastest thing on any street I'm on.
And if it helps the environment, great.
But that's awesome. Yeah. Then I'll high five you for that one. But
exactly.
You know what?
But then I'm gonna do a donut in my built diesel to make up for it.
My wife has a little Chevy Bolt.
That thing's so nice.
And that little thing, it's a really good looking car. It's super roomy, and it's way faster than anybody ever expects it's going to be. You better have 400 plus horsepower if you want to beat this thing in a stoplight race. If you don't have 400 horsepower, if your shit isn't rated 400 horsepower, I'll bet you $1,000 that I will take you in this stock Bolt in a fucking stoplight race every single fucking time. 10 out of 10, you're getting smoked. It pulls and it just keeps fucking pulling, and it's fast. You're like, dude, why is this little car fast? Well, it's electric and it doesn't have to shift. And if you only weigh 180 pounds, you're the only one in it. It hustles.
Yeah.
People who haven't driven a Plaid or been in with a fast Teslas, it's like you could buy the $2 million hypercar, and you're going to get your ass beat by a SUV with four people in it from every red light, and you're going to feel bad about it the entire time.
It is pretty crazy how fast.
My buddy had a Hellcat. My buddy had a Hellcat, and his wife's little tiny Asian girl college friend smoked him in her stock ass Model 3 that was not a performance upgrade in any way, and she pulled by him after he had launched on her, and she was sipping her fucking coffee, and he was like, I'm getting rid of this fucking thing. And 3 days later he had a Plaid.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at Nathan Munson. He has a red-eye Challenger, which is the fast one. He has a Z06 Corvette. All these vehicles, he daily says Plaid and says it's his favorite vehicle. Now, granted, I'm not getting rid of my built diesel truck because diesel.
So, how much power can you put in a Tesla before it's a problem? Talk to us, Matt.
It's tricky to say. I mean, if I exceed the power inverter's capability of 100,
it's going to throw the car to limp mode, and you're going to know it's a problem.
I mean, you're just not going to get that energy. I mean, it's and
it's
the
like
other
running
thing,
a vehicle with a stock alternator.
What's that?
So it's like running a vehicle with a stock alternator because you're not going to get any more than 100 something amps out of it.
But the other thing is, like, at some point, if you demand too much current, if there's a large surge, it probably will detect it as a fault and give you issues.
It's what it does. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It does it every day.
Yeah.
And the car does it a limp mode. And he's got to like putt it kind of like limpy limp, like fucking slow poke mode, and get it parked and turn it off and wait a little while and turn it back on again. And it'll tell him if it's still in fault mode or not. And then he can fucking.
Yeah. The way that works is there's like a computer that controls the current that goes from the converter to the front battery, and it has really, really fast switching. I guess they're what's the word? Not a relay. It's a
transducer.
No, a transformer.
Oh, okay.
It's got little micro switching MOSFETs. Thank you, MOSFETs.
Okay.
So it's got like effectively like super large MOSFETs, and it can turn off certain circuits really, really fast. And that's what they use instead of fuses. So that's why after a certain amount of time, he can turn it back on. Everything's all good again until he cranks it up.
How much power is in that your buddy's car, Bobby? Going with all the 8s in it.
He's got a B2 Osprey 8K wired at like 0.3, I think. And then
he just runs car off, basically. Is that how that works?
I mean, he'll run it with the car operating as well. But when he parks it, he'll plug it in to that little power supply when he's like at show, and if rather than like leaving the car trying to operate it, he's better off when it's parked to just plug it into the little power inverter. So he's not making the car struggle at all. You know,
it's different than a gas car, like car on, car off. Like, does it even matter in an electric car?
No. Well, because he plugs in the power inverter.
Right.
So there is no like car on.
No, the car like on, car off thing is just like whether the computer is on or off. But if the actual, like, if the doors are open, generally speaking, the car's on.
Gotcha. I guess if you're playing the stereo, it probably has to be on too.
It's gonna, as long as the computers are on to pull power from the power converter, then yeah. But if he's got that power supply, then I would imagine he could probably run it with the car off.
Damn, dude, I'm still thinking about that $750 a month for a 3-bay garage with a lift.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
If I could take 3 of those side by side right now.
Yeah. Well, they've raised the price to $2,500 a month, and every now and then I'll message him and give him crap because, you know, when we first started, it was $750 a month. It was with electric, mind you. So it was like a no-brainer, and it made, you know, we actually took care of the place. We cleaned it up. We put up cameras. We, you know, got everything in working order and put new light fixtures up, and we took care of it. We cared. And then, you know, now as he's asking $2,500, he took the lift out and they painted the shop, basically painted right over the dirt, and they put a new garage door in. That's and I'm amazing. Like, it's not worth $2,500 now. Like, it's, if anything, you took the lift out, it's barely worth more than $750. So sometimes I'll give him some crap because he's still trying to, I think, get too much for that garage, but I miss it. That's for sure.
Chris, hey guys, we have some pretty cool stuff I'd love to share. One is our friend Jose Ramos shared some pictures earlier today of a really cool install that he got to fix. That looked really interesting. I thought we might go over that. And then there's also some super cool blue amplifiers that I stumbled across earlier today that I think would be cool to share.
Let me save these photos real quick of what Jose sent. And then while
these are install of the week pictures.
Yeah. Sure. Well, not exactly install of the week. A little bit of
I'm fucking around.
It's install fail of the week, right? Right.
Since we haven't done this in a while.
Maybe Matt can have some really good insight on some of this really cool amplifier mounting that they got going on. Something I've never seen before.
Let's see what you got.
I'm getting them right now.
Yeah, this is one I've never really seen anybody. Let's see. I don't want to like spill the beans on it, but if you zoom in to the left side of that photo, or actually let's hold down one amp with the mounting screws of the other amp, pressing it down to the floor.
Can you zoom in more, Drew, or no?
There we are. I am like, bro, that's a win. So shout out to Jose Ramos and Fat Boys Car Stereo in Oakland, California. They got to work on this thing today.
They got to, or they had to? Because I don't know if that was one got to.
No, I'm sure. Hey, I bet it made him smile. I bet it made him giggle. You know, if they got paid reasonably to fix that shit, then cool. I'd really love to see the after photos. He didn't share those, but woo, that's a lot right there. Over here, I think the other amp on the far right is kind of held in place by the carpet hooked around the corner of the amp.
Oh yeah, right there for sure. Oh, absolutely.
Oh no, this was the other one over here on the far right. That corner, I'm like putting my finger on the screen. Oh no, it was an optical illusion in one of the other photos, I guess. Anyway.
Oh yeah, right there.
Yeah. I was like, dude.
Oh, let's count the horns. Count the horns.
Oh shit! I love just the power wire just hanging over.
All right, let me get these other photos saved real quick. I keep reading the chat. People are like, "Oh, this will beat a Tesla. This will beat a Tesla." That's cool. I'll beat a Tesla on my motorcycle. That's really cool, bro. You're talking about beating a sedan that came off the showroom floor.
There's not a whole lot of motorcycles that are beating Teslas either. Like, You better have some fucking balls on you.
There's a video of the dude modified his Tesla Plaid to get rid of the top speed limiter. He got to 217 before he ran out of road. He's like, all right, slow down. And it's not like he was creeping
the
to it.
Ruthless amplifiers are not the Gately Audio amplifiers. Ruthless Audio is owned by
a friend of mine,
but those are not Ruthless amplifiers. Those are Gately Audio amplifiers. So,
look at.
I think it's funny that people don't deduct that it doesn't have a Gately shield on it. That it's probably not Gately because anything I touch ends up with that damn shield on it. And
look at that.
What do we got, Galia? A 4-channel?
This is a 5-channel right here.
5
This
channel.
is the 5-1700, 1500 by 150 by 4 that we're looking at right here. And then we have
called,
a 4-channel
5-1700. Is that the name of it or whatever?
Yeah, G5-1700, and then there's the G4-700 AB. That's a Class AB 4-channel for you SU guys.
Sick. Sweet.
I'm surprised Drew doesn't have his pinky up like this shit. And so
I run Class D. Sorry.
What's that?
I run Class D. Sorry.
Well, I mean, whatever. So anyway. Big ass 4-channel amplifier. It's beautiful. And then we have the G1-5700. So 5700 watt monoblock makes 5700 watts at 13.8 volts. I figured most vehicles that I've been working with have been dealing with 13.8 volts. So I'd rate the amp at that. That's the big one on the left there.
Okay.
So a really cool feature to the amplifiers. If you look, you see those 2 slots down either side of the amplifier. Those are the same dimensions as the slots on 80/20 aluminum. So any of the building material that a lot of people are using in like conversion vans and some people are building CNC routers and shit out of that stuff and medical equipment, things of that nature. But I figured it would make for some really creative amplifier mounting, also using the amplifier itself as part of the rack. So
you're talking about the top side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a really good example of this is like in the Raiden truck, that amp rack that I designed and Colt welded up. That could have been done in a 10th of the amount of time with a quarter of the amount of material had we had amplifiers with this style mounting ability. So we wouldn't have had this big crazy rack with all these components. I could have just had 2 rails and
they just slide on the rails.
They just slide on the rails. You just tighten it up and boom, you're good to go. So
that's pretty dope.
That's really cool.
So yeah, I know somebody with a pretty cool kicker build that could use 3 of those 5700s.
Well, I don't know who that is.
He's got a beard.
You haven't narrowed this down at all yet.
Starts with S.
Okay, now.
Well, considering that the Warhorses are going to be the last piece of the puzzle, but I mean,
be a while. So you can run these for a while until you get the Warhorses and lose a DB. I'm just kidding.
But I'll have 9 Warhorses. So.
Oh, you'll have 9 of them though. Okay, well, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, it'd be bitching to have 1 on each sub. Any amplifier, really. So,
what are you going to say, Matt?
Those amps that you have, they're non-DSP amps, right?
No, I don't have a DSP built into my amps. I'm not that fucking smart yet, man.
Holy
fuck!
Oh, we got these pictures up. Okay.
What do you think about this, Matt? Can you fix this? What if the guy pulls in and is like, "Hey, I need this tuned"?
No, you don't.
What needs to be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine.
No, I just think it needs to be tuned up a little bit. Can you
Yeah, look right here. It's got DSP right here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a DSP.
That's DSP right there. I mean, it qualifies. It's got a DSP. It's right there. It's a tarantula.
Damn, that's a seat lift.
I like the bench seat.
Yeah,
I've seen this before.
Feel all warm and fuzzy.
I've seen that before.
I have seen guys post shit like that, and they'd be like, "Bro, I did this build at the shop I work at, and it was way louder than the Gately box." And they post some shit like that, and I'm like,
"Yeah, bud."
Well, yeah,
I don't believe you. One, and that looks like shit. Yeah, okay.
Just replace the bottom cushion.
Yes, my amplifiers are built in Korea, overseas. Yep. Yes, sir.
What was your question going to be, though, Matt, about the non-DSP
Yeah.
So no, I was just thinking so the settings that you have on the side of the amps, I'm assuming you have high pass filters, low pass filters, gains. Am I missing anything?
There's just 7 different bass boosts for each channel. I'm just kidding. No bass boost on the amplifiers, and just crossovers, gain, and phase for the.
So you said phase?
Well, on the big amp, there's a phase.
Oh, you mean like polarity, 180 and 0?
No, it's got an adjustable phase.
Hold on.
Okay, so when you turn the knob, is that applying like an all-pass filter, or is it adding delay? Do you know what it does?
No, on the monoblock, it would just change that way. If you had multiple amplifiers, you could adjust the phase from one to the next.
Gotcha.
It's just the signal phase, right?
Yeah, just the signal phase.
Okay. So no, what's really interesting about that, which is, kind of why I asked about it, was because even without Max, if you have like a single mic or like a USB mic or XLR, whatever you use, some sort of sound card, you can use tune with the targets to basically tune these amps without a DSP, just using the settings that you have on the amps to get better results.
That's fucking cool.
So I can show you a quick demonstration if you still got my screen share up.
I love this.
So right here we have just the RTA with our targets. So this target that you see on screen, this is a 4-way target, and that's our default target. So usually, if you're using like an active 4-way system, this might be your go-to. But for yours, maybe you're using a 2-way. Maybe it's just a subwoofer and then main speakers. So I can load the 2-way target. And these targets, you can modify them however you'd like. So if you want like a cut at 2K, you can add a cut at 2K like that. You can change it. If you want more bass, you can add more bass, low, higher. You can elevate the level of the sub if you want even more like that. But
Scott, there's no 10x switch, but his high pass goes to 5K, and you can run band pass on it. I'm looking at it.
So what I want to show you is we have some traces from Scott's car, actually. So
yes,
here's Scott's left mid bass and his right mid bass speakers, and here's his subwoofer. So say that you're working on a car with your amps in it, and you just want to make sure that everything's aligned properly. You would match let me bring up the target for those. So you'd want to match your mid bass speakers or mid bass, mid range, whatever it is, to a given target. So in this case, the green was our target, but we actually modified it slightly on Scott's car. We raised the target level probably to right about there. And I think this was at 400. So see how now that lines up really well with the target. So you would match your speakers in the car to the target. And then once you do that, you can look at what would the proper target be for the subwoofer. And then you would just match your subwoofer to the subwoofer target. So now I have subwoofer, and I actually have to move that frequency up too. So that was at 90 hertz. But now we have the subwoofer that matches the target and the mid bass matching the target. Then you can play them together and use your phase knob on the side of your amp to adjust it and actually watch as it nulls and then comes up and gives you the most output.
Okay. That's awesome.
You could literally just using the targets that are built in, tune non-DSP amps and just make sure that your summation between the two channels gives you this result, the yellow. So the yellow
so
is
really just working with your crossovers and the slope of those crossovers and then the phase adjustment.
Yep.
You can get real good.
Yep. So
without a DSP.
You can see how the green and the purple actually add up to the yellow. Scott, it's his car.
I suspected that, and I'm all, what's he talking about?
Yep.
It's a different Scott. I'm so
gotta be different Scott.
Yeah. So the yellow is a sum of each individual channel, and the cool thing about targets mode is you can modify these to anything. Like Drew has a target for his Tahoe that's totally different than the shape of this target.
Oh, it's goofy. It's real goofy.
But that's okay. You can. The whole point of having the targets is to get your desired sound as fast as possible. And
so over time, your target curve of your yellow dashed line will be something that you develop for you, right? And mine probably would have a dip at 2,500 because my ears are hypersensitive to that. So I probably would end up with a little dip in there, and that's how I would tune. And I could, hypothetically, if I'm tuning a regular audio system, I make my target curve, and then I figure out what my mids can produce well enough. And so I have an idea of the target curve it can produce. If I find that I'm getting a little extra at one end or the other, I might even broaden my target curve for that particular speaker set, just because I'm doing so well with it, right? If I go, okay, I have a 6-inch and I have in the door, and I have a 3-inch and a tweeter on the pillar, and that 6-inch in the door is doing really well all the way up to 1,500-1,800, I might cross that 3-inch over a little higher, or roll them both off and have more overlap, or if I sound in the shit of the door really well, I might bring that target curve of that 6-inch in the door down to 50 hertz rather than 60 or 80.
Yeah, you change it to be anything.
And you can but Matt, what you're kind of saying is like you take your curve that you have there, that yellow dotted line, and then you can basically take that into any vehicle, throw the max in with the mic, tune non-DSP amps.
Well, that's where I was going to, is you could do this. Yeah. You can do this with this software. You don't even need Max to do this.
You can do this with whatever mic you have at your shop, as long as it's
any mic. Right.
I could do it with my computer laptop, the mic built in.
Really? Just with a certain software?
So basically, I would go up here.
That software.
Yep. So I would I have my Max connected. Let me just turn it off, and I'll show you how easy this is. So input from my MacBook,
Matt's iPhone microphone.
Yeah. So if I put Matt's iPhone microphone, right, and then I can generate signal to whatever I want to generate signal to. So here's my microphone. As soon as I select it, it's already here. So now I'm already taking measurements in just 30 seconds, and you can connect whatever microphone you have and literally start tuning with that microphone using these curves. Now, with Max, there are more things that you can do. However,
like the live phase
this program we're looking at, this is a free to use program.
Totally free. Yep.
4.5. You can download it from
Well, that's fucking cool.
And we have the 2-way, 3-way, and 4-way targets. We also have a marine target somewhere in here that's specific.
And this stuff's built in, like some of the targets are built into the software.
Yep. And then we also have that's other really targets, awesome, which have the Harman target, the half Whitledge target, and the Brax Helix target. If you like one of those, you just use one of those. And the most powerful thing about targets is these targets here. You can see this is the RTA response, but you can actually see the impulse response of what those targets would look like if they were in the perfect
world.
I'm over to the right.
The Max uses Mini XLR for its 5 microphones.
That's pretty.
This is actually a new build,
really cool,
and I might actually have found a new bug right now.
So honestly, is that your curve over there off in the little side of the graph?
Yeah, you can see how it's like kind of going off the side.
That's cool.
I think this is
awesome.
For somebody that maybe just wanted to learn the software a little bit before they jumped into a Max, they could literally just download this and kind of screw around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of get an idea.
I'm going to have Colt and Tyson spend the first half of the day tomorrow together, 4 hours. I'm going to be like, this is what you guys are going to do for the first 4 hours a day. You're going to have lunch, and then you're going to work on something else. And I'm going to have them play with this and the DMRTA, the audio control mic that we have. And I'm going to have them play with these curves and learn it and watch your videos and watch the videos from the other guys there at jail and get us prepped and learning what the fuck we're doing a little bit before I spend all the dough to buy a Max.
I don't know if the DMRTA will allow you to use the mic for another program.
Dave, he has his own show already. Dave Bradshaw's like, this guy needs his own show. It's like, it's a whole JL channel, bud. There's a whole ass bunch of this, buddy.
So, Bobby, and there's actually some stuff about the DMRTA that I'll tell you about off stream.
Okay.
I'm not sure how public this information is about it, but
I mean, it definitely has some quirks, and I'm, but it's effective and we're able to use it and
Mhm.
and have great results. But obviously, if there's things that can perform better, that are newer tech or newer versions of very old tech, after what we learned, at the beginning of the show with Matt, I'm in. And I want to provide, I am charging
You want to provide
quite a premium price for the premium service that I'm providing. And if I can buy equipment and attain knowledge to provide an even better service for my customers, then shit, any of them that might be watching any of the show ever are like, yeah, shit, buy that shit, do that shit. I'm sure I paid you enough to afford that. So handle it. Yeah.
Question for Matt there from the chat. Can you use this to set crossovers?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we were just showing, that you can perfectly optimize your crossover interaction by making sure that it aligns with the target. That is the target is the ideal system. It's perfect in every way. There's no discrepancies. There's no reflections. It's showing you the perfect result. The only part of
he may be talking about like crossovers on the amplifiers, which tuned by itself maybe not, but with the max you could see the output of the amplifier and turn it down until you reach the set point.
Well, I guess it depends how he's talking about setting targets. Or crossovers. There's a couple ways, right? You could measure it with a multimeter. You could find out how, what the 3 dB down point is and stuff like that. But the easiest way to set the targets is just acoustically have your mic in the position, because acoustic's more important than electrical. So have the mic in the position wherever the listening position is.
Yep.
Match choose your acoustic target for your mid bass speaker, which usually is, based on the protection of the mid bass. So somewhere around 80 hertz, maybe 70 if it's a strong mid bass. And then optimize the interaction of your sub so that it perfectly complements wherever the mid bass line up.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it's almost a better way to set your crossovers is to have these target curves and then get in there and keep messing with stuff until you're just like we saw that mid bass almost match that curve.
Yeah, and I say you couldn't just tune, but you could just play with a single mic and just turn your crossover up or down until the signal your microphone's receiving matches. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you want to be careful turning it down, especially if it's a tweeter.
The max, I think, retail 3,600, 3,500.
I believe you're right. Yeah,
somewhere in there, which is not cheap, but.
I mean, if you're a shop,
if
doing
you
daily
tune
installs,
10 cars and you charge $400 each,
boom, paid for.
And boom, you paid for your piece of equipment.
Or if you just charge what you were charging your customer anyway,
piece of equipment, you made 10 very happy customers.
And so on top of that, I love that you said tune for 10 cars, but it also does tons for OEM integration and as just an installer tool in general. So like the XLR inputs allow you to measure OEM signals and you can compare left to right and all that. And then on top of that, you can do, like, as an installer's tool, we can do real-time impedance measurements. So you can measure a speaker while it's in the car, put your door panel or your grill on top of the speaker, and if it makes contact with the speaker, you'll know immediately. So like just as like an everyday around the shop tool, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do to like just make installing easier. So
you could, but your phone mic's not going to be super. I mean, it's going to be decent, but it's not going to be great by any means.
You could probably use your phone mic. It'd be better than just trying to use your ears. Right.
Yes. And you can probably buy a
learning curve, right? If the guys that are like, I'm saving my money and I'm going to buy badass tuning tools and I want to learn this now, they put their mic in there, smush it down with the headrest, or they got their cell phone hanging off the headrest. And I mean, it's a good start to learning.
You could probably buy.
We don't have a Max. We have a different mic. We're going to put that shit in there, and I'm going to have them using the Tune software and studying what how they would use the Max in that place, and have the guys getting versed on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a good starting point for the people watching, if you want to try to do some of this with just the free software, probably jump on Amazon. Yeah, grab a decent USB mic that has probably a long cord, so you could tune outside your vehicle. Put your mic just like any other tuning kit is. Buy a $40-$50 mic, throw it in your car, and start learning. before you spend that
UMM6 is $85 on Amazon, which is the USB mic I was using before I got the Max.
There you go. That's really cool. I had no idea, and it being free to download, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, if you have a Behringer or like some sort of like sound card that you can actually put electrical measurements into, being mindful that not all sound cards or USB audio interfaces can accept, Class D output, big amplifier channels. But if you have some sort of sound card that can accept high level voltage, you can measure OEM channels with a sound card. So.
That just went over my head, but
just for example, if you had your car, right, and you wanted to measure your amp output, as long as you have a sound card like I don't have one here, but like a Behringer or just like a USB audio interface, you plug it in via USB and then you plug in like an XLR probe into it, you could measure with it electrically.
Yeah, Bobby, look, Scott's preaching to you.
I'm not holding back.
I know. Is it dynamic or shotgun? I think dynamic mics, aren't they?
Are you asking about our mics? They're omnidirectional. I'm not sure what the type of microphone capsule is. I can find out from Nick and post on this post later. But I don't know exactly what the type of the mic capsule is.
That's not a question.
Get back to you on that.
And then the Max comes with 5 mics. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay, and it's recommended you run all 5 mics when you're tuning.
Well, it depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do a sound quality tune and average the driver's seat, then yeah, use all 5 mics. But if you want to do multi-seat tuning, you could have 3 mics in one seat, 2 mics in the other seat. If you're doing a living room where you're doing a home theater, maybe you have 1 mic in the main listening position, move the other mics out along the couch. It's totally flexible, and you do whatever you want with it.
This is how they come set up.
Yeah.
So you would basically put that whole setup in the seat.
You sit in the vehicle and you hold it in your mouth.
Exactly. So the red mic is normally the one used for time and phase and all that fun stuff. So you put that dead center of your head. I was putting it a little too high, but now I got to figure it out. Dead center of your head, and then just everything is a spatial average around your head for the RTA.
Yeah, and you can point the mics in any direction. They're omnidirectional up until the point that the frequencies wavelengths are smaller than the tip of that capsule. So you're talking well up into the 20 kilohertz range. They're color coded. What's that?
That's
cool. Color coded, yeah. So the color code there actually matches the color code on the side of Max. So you just plug them in the same way and set them up. The only mic that really matters is mic 3 should be in the middle because that's our timing reference. Mm-hmm. So that's how we align phase and impulse response using that center mic because you can only align time to one point in space.
So there was a big thread going on the other day on the basehead pages. There were phase matching amplifiers electrically, which is great, but it doesn't really matter in the end because that's not acoustically matched, which is all that matters. Because if a speaker is 6 feet away from another speaker, then they're not going to be matched at your head or at the mic's listening location. Even if they're matched electrically. Well, especially if they're matched electrically, they can't be matched acoustically.
So if they're matched electrically, Drew, would that basically means they're all going to move in unison?
Yeah.
Correctly?
Yep.
Okay. So, it's going to help, but...
No, it will help.
But you need both. A little bit of both.
Acoustic.
Now, what about in a box? Like, let's say it's a 6th order, and it's got the port at the back. And, there's 9 subs, and it's got 3 rows of 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I suppose the theory previously would be that they should all be electrically aligned so that all the subs are doing the exact same thing at the same time. Right. But we're finding that acoustic alignment, even in that configuration, is better.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
So I think it depends, right? So first things first, if they're in a common chamber,
Yeah.
That makes it a bit more difficult, because if you're running separate channels in a common chamber, then if they are not moving identically, they're going to be fighting each other.
Right.
So
but
I would
if they are moving identically in a 6-order, there's going to be loading issues anyway, because some of the subs are buying opening, some aren't.
Being perfectly electrically aligned or being perfectly acoustically aligned, maybe neither of them is ideal, and maybe it's somewhere very likely
you should
in the
do
middle
both,
of
I would assume, right?
Well, once you
why wouldn't you just do both?
You can't do both.
You can't do both.
You can't? What?
No.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, because if you electrically align everything, that means you cannot change anything. Period. After that, no signal, no power, no nothing.
Well, you can't electrically align them first and then acoustically align them.
No, because as soon as you change something to acoustically align them, you're going to change the electrical alignment. But like Bobby's saying, that essentially, I think that might have been something I brought up in the chat one day. I was like, man, these 6-order, there's a whole other wave back there. And it's just something I haven't had enough time to play with, because this technology is old, but no one's done it to the point where
Bobby,
you can see phase.
When you said the acoustical phase was better, is this from experience, from having experience hearing the?
This is more my experience through Drew. Honestly,
well, because acoustical phase that's everything's arriving at your head or the mic location at the exact same time in the exact same way. It's going to be more efficient. It's going to be louder. It's going to be better. But like Bobby's saying, on these big walls, that may not always
be. But if the subs are fighting each other just a little bit,
fighting each other a little bit. Now, here we go. Let's back it up a little bit, Steve. Let's say it's a 4th order, and it's got 3 rows of 3, and it's got 3 separate sealed chambers. Acoustic alignment is going to be the absolute best for that. I would bet on it, right? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm extremely confident.
Yep.
So
that's real straightforward there, right? But if you're sharing the chamber, then we go right back to that. There's probably some just right in between of where perfect electrical alignment is, and where perfect acoustic alignment is, and I bet it's somewhere between the middle.
I would almost think
of
in
those
a
two
common
that
chamber
performs the absolute best.
You're probably right, but I would think in a common chamber, electrical phase is probably more important.
So when you're in a common chamber, what matters most is that the subs don't fail. And if they are fighting each other, right? If one's going up first and then the other one's going up second, and they're constantly in a battle chasing each other, that's always going to cause some sort of intermodulation distortion where one speaker's moving and the other one's moving at a different point. So it's never going to be right. It's never going to be 100%. So in that aspect, I would probably say that electrical phase is more important to keep the woofers from damaging each other or fighting each other. It'll keep them playing all the same. Will it have the most output at the listening position compared to if you acoustically align them? No, it won't. But
Matt,
the speakers will not be damaged.
These guys want to blow their subs up.
Sometimes it seems like that's exactly what they want.
Yeah. I'm like, and I would say that I would even, like, let's say I could gain half a dB and be at a 10% more risk of damaging my subs.
Every bass head would take that 100% of the time.
I'll take that dB myself.
Let me ask you a quick question. What's the furthest separation or difference you've seen between like acoustically aligned and phase? Like, so if you're perfectly electrically aligned and everything's moving the same, and then you acoustically align it, does it make it to where
that's probably not something they've tested a lot of?
Well,
are they moving almost exactly the same? They're very minute, or you sometimes see a big spread.
Every 1 millisecond of delay is about the same as about one foot, right? So if like Drew was saying earlier, there was a sub what size sub was that, Drew?
Which one?
The
Let's
one
just say 4 feet, like
3 or whatever. They were like 18s or 24s.
Oh, yeah, they were 18s.
18s, okay. So he had an 18 here, and then 2 feet behind that, because 18 inches a gap, and then another 18 inches, 2 feet behind that was another 18. So that means there's like a 2 millisecond difference on one sub compared to the other, so that they both arrive at the listening position at the same time. So with that said, what happens in 2 milliseconds on the subs? Like, that's what you need to know. How large is that difference? That's what would tell you how
much. It'd be interesting to find out, like, what you need to stay under to not damage your subs. Like,
so
if you can stay under really like wild, a 3 millisecond difference, you're good. But anything over that, you might start
your enclosure. If you change that phase, that tiny bit, right, that alignment, your whole enclosure is completely different to every one of those subwoofers. It's all, they're seeing different volume and pressure, and the world changes. And it might be, and there could be some magic there where they're kind of squeezed in there, and because they're moving a little bit different, they're experiencing less pressure than they would if they were completely
purposely putting them slightly out of phase in the enclosure.
Right.
Well, we need to stop talking about this on live.
So they can make a really, really, really small enclosure.
Really, really tiny. You're like, all right, we squeezed fucking 24 18s into this
in 3 cubes. Run it.
Yeah, I mean, this is real shit, right? Because it would be completely fucking different, and we need smart guys like Matt and the guy Nick to help us figure that shit out, because it's way beyond me. I could fuck around and blow a bunch of shit up and figure out some of it.
So Nick's already told me he has some stuff he wants to work with me on, with involving high power and impedance or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. I'll test whatever, because I'm gonna need your help when I go to test stuff like this.
Yeah, with Max, we have the ability to basically measure impedance while you're playing your subs on like a high power amplifier. So you could be running 4,000 watts into your sub while measuring impedance. It's pretty cool.
Like while playing music, you can measure. Right. Yeah, it's.
But aside from that, I think that the whole, what phase is time over frequency. So if you get the subs acoustically in phase, where all of their phase traces align properly in the listening position, that's effectively going to be the loudest. However, the rear energy that comes out of the enclosure, especially if there's if it's a 6 order and you have this other, well, if it's a 6 order, they're all the energy is coming out at the same time, right?
Well, there's gonna be a front and back wave that you need to deal with. Yeah.
But do they usually come out of a common port, or are they usually?
Usually the port goes to the back.
Yeah.
Right?
Usually,
like, let's say we're at a wall, right? We got a bunch of 15s. We have a wall here. It's got its big ass port. This big port way to the back.
Yep.
Most often.
Right. So if you have one source of energy, I would imagine that you'd probably be relatively okay if you're aligning their phase response acoustically in the listening position and all of the energy is coming from that enclosure. The only tricky part with doing that in a common chamber is, in order for when one stop, because you'd have to mute all the subs and play one at a time. When one sub plays, the other subs are going to play the other way, right? It's going to push. Right. The air is going to push, out, and then the other subs are going to move in. It's just going to be a pressure equalization.
Passive radiator, basically.
And they're going to be, and then that makes the other subs make sound.
Exactly. So
it's going to make a fucking mess of it when you're measuring.
I think Matt was the one that brought that up for me when I had Price's Tahoe aligning it. So I took weighted blankets and covered everything. There was a better way to go about it that involved shorting the sub to itself, but
yes,
I didn't feel like taking
the best way to do it.
If you just short the leads together, that's all it takes to make them stay solid.
Yeah, when you short the leads, any energy that pushes on one side is the exact amount pushing the other way. So it'll stop itself. So yeah, if you just short the leads, if you have
I think this is what I found. Of course, I've only had Price's Tahoe. I want to get some time with Duncan's van, but you're playing at such a low volume level with the Max that these subs are so stiff that you're not moving them. You know what I mean? Like, you're playing for that one sub that's playing music, but the others aren't moving. Like, because you're moving 118, but then there's 818s worth of cone area to absorb energy. They're not moving. because I put all those
like
a
threshold. I'm sure they are a little bit. No, I'm sure they are.
Okay,
but
so let's say hypothetically.
This is why I need to get Duncan's van over here to play with.
Let's say hypothetically it is a 6th order, right? And it's 9 15s, right? And it has 3 rows of individual chambers, and they each have their own port or ports in each of them.
Yep.
Then we could acoustically align, and then we could have the most efficiency and output and least likely to damage woofers.
Totally.
Without our experiment in what happens when we have the alignment changed in the enclosure to shrink it down to 30% of what a normal size would have been. But
I wonder, with the power that we run, I wonder if it's going to change things, because most of these SQ systems where you're acoustically aligning stuff, there's not a ton of power compared relative to what we're doing.
Yeah, so when you're looking at phase, phase is showing you time over frequency, not relative to power. So
I guess what I'm saying is if we're going to dump 60,000 watts into a sub stage compared to an SQ guy, maybe a few thousand watts, it could be where acoustically aligning them is not louder. It could be because of how much power we're running that maybe electrically. No, okay.
No, it's just physics. There's nothing magical about it. It's just, when they're acoustically aligned and all the energy arrives at the same exact time, you're going to have more output. Just imagine if one plays a sine wave.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, if the subs are powered with so much more power, that difference in electrical alignment may overcome the advantage that you're actually getting from acoustic
like
alignment.
the whole fuck efficiency. I could give a fuck less. I got 100,000 watts on tap. So if I built this thing and I had it acoustically aligned and it was just so, but I would run out of stability. I would start damaging woofers if I went over 60K. But if I had it if I had it electrically aligned at 100K, I could throw 105,000 watts on it with a hard clip, and it wouldn't blow anything up. I'm probably going to be fucking louder.
This is why,
and that's probably just something.
All the loud vehicles have the same layout, and generally, until you get to like hyper loud, they all have as minimal subwoofers as possible. Like RP's van, forward firing, but a bunch of subs. Carl's van, forward firing, to eliminate these phase issues. Physically,
the subs having the same
before
distance.
You start dialing it in electrically / acoustically.
So did you do anything to Duncan's van? Did you acoustically or electrically?
No, I haven't had a chance to get to use the max with it yet. We did play with phase and amps a little bit, but I knew that it would. I knew it would work, and it did. It got more efficient, but I haven't had a chance.
And when you said you played with the phase, was that electrical alignment or acoustic alignment?
It would have been acoustical because we had the term lab. We were measuring off of clamp power on the term lab. So, like, what it took to get X score, it took X amount of power.
Okay. Gotcha.
And that's acoustical.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never done that. I've only electrically aligned systems. So
that's right.
This will be pretty neat.
That's why the wall in our Nitro rebuild with Kicker is all forward firing, because we're gonna physically eliminate a bunch of the phase issues. Because the SPL goals are so high that we need every advantage that we can get.
Very cool.
But we are going to properly align Duncan's van because he has an amp per sub, baby.
Yes.
Man.
6K per sub. Let's do it.
It would look hella cool right there.
A bunch of blue amplifiers.
A bunch of big-ass blue amplifiers.
That will look really good.
It would look really
someone
good.
asked what the
like
best
a sick-ass billet rack.
Ooh,
that
buddy.
fasten them all together. It's all machined.
And you use the aluminum that's you could just readily buy to hang them, like you were saying, right? Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You'd actually just mount them straight from the back, and they'd be floating.
Some heat issues on some of those things. That shit goes out the window. My amps are not going to have fucking
the heat sinks on your amps are
massive.
I can see how big them things were.
I was holding the 5700 today when I was like shaking. I just got done training jiu-jitsu. My arms are all fried, and I'm like tried to hold it up like oh my god, I'm gonna drop this thing. Like, that's a lot of amp. It's
someone asked what the best SQ SPL vehicle has ever been, and it's probably one of the original Kicker competition group guys. I know Jeremy Boyd at one point had a vehicle that would burp a 60 and then score a 220 plus an Iasca SQ. That's
Jeremy Boyd builds some super badass shit, man. He makes loud shit and he makes beautiful sounding stuff. I got to help him fix his SQ car when he was on his way down to Knowledge Fest. He was having an electrical problem. Had nothing to do with anything he did. It was the car's factory primary hot wire that went from the battery to the fuse block. Wire was this long, and it was
not
crusty and like just. And I touched it and it was like physically hot. And I was like, oh shit. And he was smelling hot plastic. And that thing had no fuse. His car would have burned to the ground had it gone on much further. And he'd been driving from the Pacific Northwest on his way to LA.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an hour out of Sacramento and called me up and was like, hey man, I'm having an electrical problem in my car. It's doing some wild shit. And every once in a while I smell like burning plastic. I got my whole family in this thing. And
pull up, bro.
I was like, I'll meet you at my shop. It's like 9:00 at night. I called all my technicians. Hey, come to the shop. We're going to help this man out, help him figure it out. And we sat there and troubleshot it for 20 minutes. We figured out what the problem is. One of my techs made a new wire for that, added some grounding under the hood, just making it all better. And we sent him on his way to Knowledge Fest with a fancy car with a bunch of gate and shield heat shrinks and that shit.
Steve and I have been talking to Jeremy a lot recently.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool dude, man. It's real smart.
Hyper smart. That was so we got put in a little group chat, and the very first thing I was messing with the Mac, so I sent a picture of it, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, Jeremy knows all about that tune and stuff," and I was like, "Jeremy who?" And so I wasn't like, "Oh, that guy,
that Jeremy,
that guy."
Yeah, he actually gained and phase matched the Green Monster for me at Surf because like one of my techs had done it. And then we had connected the amps like master slave
strap.
I mean, it's not strapped.
Gain match,
cascade, whatever configuration. Anyway, and you're supposed to be able to just use the gain on one of them. And I started fucking with that gain, and I didn't tell anybody that I fucked with that gain.
Oh, these are the
and then it was having a weird problem, and so the guys put it back to how it was, and nobody knew because I didn't know that I didn't know they'd already gain matched those. And so we're like in the truck and I'm demoing it and he's like, you need to gain match your amps. I don't think they're right. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I thought the guys did it. And he's like, let's take a look. And he went and got his meter and he's like, oh no. I was like, I'm all embarrassed. He's like, it's okay. And then my tech was like, I did the gain match, man. What did I do wrong? He's like, yeah. And he's like, I did it right before we did that cascade thing. And I'm all, I started fucking with the gain when we were in cascade mode. And he's like, yeah. And we discovered that there was a flaw and they were making noise. It was a weird issue when they were wired in cascade and they didn't like it.
Matt, what camera are you using?
Who? My iPhone camera.
Bullshit.
Seriously. It's just, it's actually, I can't show you because it's like my camera, but I have it on a gimbal. And with the new Mac update,
oh yeah.
You have the capability of continuity camera.
Nice,
he's got his sexy filter on.
It does look good.
Let me turn off my filters. Here we go. There you go.
You're still pretty sexy, but we can't see as much as the cool stuff in the background.
Yeah.
Makes all blurbles around Drew's beard.
I asked Drew this over the weekend because I recently fried my head unit. And I've been looking through to find a new head unit. I wanted to try to find a single DIN that had like a fold out screen or something along those lines. But I came across this Pioneer one that has like a thing to hold your phone basically. And on the phone, you could download this Pioneer app that instead of having the single DIN screen, now you have your phone screen that shows all the stuff that the head unit has. So now you use, which I thought was pretty neat. And then I asked Drew if the tweak happened to have some sort of app to where, like, let's say if I plugged a USB directly into the tweak and didn't want to use the head unit at all. Like, I know it doesn't have an app because Drew says it doesn't, but is there any talk of having something like that to where you could literally, I mean, I guess it'd be such a small segment of the market that would want to eliminate a head unit, but to just run direct USB or phone like through an app directly to the tweak.
So I mean, there's kind of two ways you could do that now. So you could just use the headphone out of whatever the device is through, you know, a RCA to headphone jack adapter, and you could just feed signal straight into the tweak that way. Or you could do like a Bluetooth adapter, like we have the MBT-RX. So it's just a little Bluetooth adapter. It's just power and ground and RCAs. You plug it in where the tweak is, and then you just connect your app on, you know, your app that or on your phone or whatever, and just play through Bluetooth. So
okay.
Or if you want to spend a couple dollars, Audison has a high-res Bluetooth streamer that has an add-on screen also.
I guess the only thing that I'm trying to not really avoid the problem I'm trying to solve is a lot of us use USB sticks loaded with thousands of songs. And unless you have a double DIN, it's literally impossible to go through. So like if it would be cool to be able to plug it in and just like be able to go through the USB on my phone through some sort of app, you know. But,
yeah. I don't know that there's anything that's been discussed about that. This is
just load the music on your phone.
This is the first time I've heard this type of request, but it's definitely interesting because
if you guys ever do come out with an app, and if you had something that like was able to read the music coming in,
there's these apps called
Spotify. So look, Spotify.
Yeah, dude, but come on, you can't have
local files. Add audio. Sorry, I haven't updated that.
I use Tidal.
DJ Rusticles on my local files that I played through Spotify in the Tahoe.
Huh.
What? Yeah, the only downfall to being able to like
you gotta teach me that. I don't know because I have a ton of Rusticles files on my phone.
Sorry, you just have to set your Spotify to look for local files you have downloaded, and it'll pull them into the app.
The only downfall is just that, you know, if we're selling a tweak, we don't want people using it while they're driving, right? So that's kind of the issue there. Is if we designed it to be controlled by an app on your phone, that means you have to use the app while you're driving to be able to control it. Now you don't have to. Now if we, you know, maybe pull this apart a little further and figure out, you know, how could we get this to work with what you want without making it unsafe to drive with, I think maybe there could be something there.
Yeah.
Apple Music is the best for streaming, but
I just know it seems like a lot of brands are starting to. You can have an app like my Kicker stuff. I can control my Q amps through my phone app or through the computer. So it's just be like if you guys actually did come out with an app.
They did. Well, like you can get the add-on stuff, and you can tune Tweak and VXI via tablet or
just VXI.
Oh, never mind, just VXI.
Yeah.
So stop being broke and get some VXIs.
With the VXI, we do have a Bluetooth controller, and you can connect to your phone or iPad to control it remotely to change settings. But
apparently nobody uses it.
Drew's the only guy I know that uses it.
I don't like Steve Teresi said the same thing. Said the only person he knows to actively use it.
Well, that's the thing. Actively is the key word there. Like usually, it was designed to be a tool for tuning. It wasn't designed to be a tool to play with your system every other day.
Maybe I want to play with my tuning every other day, bud. Actually, Chris, some of the LDAC Bluetooth streaming these days is really, really good, but you have to have like the most modern equipment for it to be good. Like my new kid with reference will stream Bluetooth in like 192 kilohertz, you know, wide open, but you can only go like 3 feet from the radio. It's like not going to work.
Hey guys, check out this comment by Blake just a moment ago. He said he did a bit of math. He thinks having 2 subs 6 feet apart, everybody can read. Go ahead and read that shit. Talk to us about this. Is that right? Math right? How do you do that fucking math, Blake? Show me.
Having 2 subs 6 feet apart acoustically in phase would have them out of phase at 83 hertz. So they'd act like
Buck is playing
infinite baffle at 80 hertz.
Wait a minute. At what frequency then? if they were acoustically.
So what acoustically and phase means, it means across the board at all frequencies, not at a single frequency. So we're not like playing like an 80 hertz sine wave and then matching them at 80 hertz. We're actually measuring phase directly and aligning the phase traces so that they're totally aligned in time over frequency. So
hey, go ahead and send me one of those. I'm gonna need one for the Tahoe and Nitro. Send me both.
So you're just playing pink noise.
Pink noise, yeah. We're able to measure the phase live because we can actually the pink noise that we use, it's called pink periodic noise. And when you listen to it, there's like a distinct like there's a start and a stop. And every time it starts, it's a new chunk of pink noise. So we can kind of lock onto those chunks and determine where time started and where it ended. So most people would listen to it and say, how do you know when the time started? How can you tell that the impulse response is perfectly stable if the pink noise never stopped? And it's because it's with math, it's calculating the exact delay, as the pink noise is playing the entire time. So when you're looking at phase, we're actually looking at time over frequency. And the reason I'm holding my hand like this is because usually it's slanted. So you'll see it when maybe we'll do another show at some point where we could dive deeper into some phase traces. But effectively, when they're aligned acoustically in phase, that means at all frequencies they become one. It's almost as if they're one speaker playing, not two. Or not 4.
6 milliseconds plus 6 milliseconds of the physical distance adds up to 12 milliseconds, roughly 83 hertz.
Well, that all makes sense.
An eighth wave or something. Anyway, Scott. MVI can work with Bluetooth. Can the Bluetooth adapter work with MVI?
That's a good question. It is called the VXI BTC, so I can look that up and find out.
Because I'm putting the MVI, which is the marine amplifiers, I'm putting one in Tahoe for the pillars and doors that Bobby's doing from a Tahoe, and then putting another one in the Nitro because it has more processing power than the standalone Tweak does at the moment because they're newer, basically. And I want to have all pass filters available for these vehicles to make them sound as good as they can.
It does not state that it will work with VXI.
Well, it better work with VXI.
I'm sorry, MVI. So I'm not totally sure.
Well, I need to buy. I'm doing it anyway because I'm going to tune in the Max. So I might just go. I'm not doing it this week. I need to save money for at least a week.
Well,
gentlemen.
Boys, I think we had a great show tonight, and I'd love to have you back on, Matt. And there's so much about this crap we could talk about for another 2 hours easily.
I want to talk about enclosure design and like because I got Byron's build, and what if it would be amazing? He would like to be a 6th order. He wants to dig super duper low base. What if we did? It's going to have like 12 15s or 16 12s or something like that.
Are they all
what if
each amp?
What?
Are they going to be on each amp, or are you going to be
each row will be on their own amp? So we have 4 salt 8s, so it'll have 4 rows of either 4 or 3. And if I were to chamber them, even if I chambered and it was a 6th and I had ports.
You'll have
multiple ports throughout the enclosure sound funky, but
if you made them vertical rows and the ports were all in the back, you'd probably be okay.
No, then that misses that's not the
you're still dealing with the depth issue at that point.
Yeah.
I like the idea of separating chamber 4th orders.
4th order makes a lot of sense.
If you blow a sub,
then you don't take out anymore. It doesn't immediately turn into a 6th order with a gnarly passive radiator. Yeah.
Steven.
Everyone.
You talking to me?
No, but I think that'd be, dude, there's some gnarly 4th orders out there, like Matthew Brown out in South Carolina, 815s. He'll play like 17 hertz, both doors open, floating babies in the doors. Just wicked stuff.
Yeah, there's no problem.
And that would make a lot of sense. So maybe something to consider in Byron's build is,
and then 4th orders can play both
chambers.
doors open.
Do 4 chambers, all equal volume, And I mean, it's something to think about.
Yeah, and then I know he's gonna want to demo and just be killing it. I mean, full throttlers do great with doors open, which is one of the big things. Play the doors open, you don't gotta close it up. I mean, because if you look at all these 6-orders that get loud and windy, they're always either both doors shut, windows down, or they're always sealed in some capacity. You don't often see them playing doors open.
Some extra pressure. They're turning it into an 8th order by having the doors closed and having the windows open. I mean, the bloodbath almost doesn't count because it's so low power, right? I mean, considering it's just got it's got a 16,000 watt amp, but we're wired at 1.3 and we have like a 5x rise, so it's like we're getting
that's perfect.
1,200 watts on each sub or some shit like that, but it just chooches. And it'll play endlessly until the end of time. You just turn it on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what it does when you actually
we triple the power and put subs that'll take a whole bunch more. Yeah, the subs, the amps are in a stack this high, sitting next to the laser at the shop. And
well, get on it.
Well, he's building a fucking house that he's trying not to finance. So I mean, he's not trying to spend $5,000 on amplifiers
in Houston too. So big money.
No, he's got another. I think it's up in Pennsylvania. Actually, is where they're doing it.
That didn't help the argument against big money at all. Actually, I think that made it worse.
It's a little more challenging. I think he has some weather issues up there north. Yes. Anyway,
did you want to show something before we part?
Yeah, I was able to get this fixed, what I was going to show you earlier. So here's the target response. Obviously, you can see this is a 4-way target. So there's tweeter, mid-range, mid-bass, and subwoofer. And the yellow is the sum of all those things. So here you can see the impulse response of the targets. The impulse response is effectively when the speaker is arriving acoustically in time. So if I zoom in to the very beginning of here, you can see that this is how they would align perfectly so that all of their wavelengths are matched. Let me hide the yellow one. So this is how they would be aligned acoustically. And then if we look at the phase response, this is how they align in phase, meaning the purple is the sub. So let me select the purple. So you can see the purple goes downward and then it trends into the green. The green's actually hidden behind it. There's the green. And then that turns into the mid-range, which is the gray, and then the red, which is the tweeter. If you look at the sum of all 4 things, they become one. They play as one single entity. So when we're talking about aligning things in phase, we're talking about aligning them across the board in phase, not at a certain frequency. We're talking about making the subwoofer and the mid-bass work totally together as one driver within their own frequency range.
And are we? And is that a alignment done with phase?
Yes, if we're using Max, we can look at phase directly and align the subwoofer directly to the mid-bass speaker.
Okay.
And are you asking how we're changing it, Bobby?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
So that's usually done through delay and all-pass filters and polarity. So
okay.
We usually
so delay is phase. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, and then all pass filters are some wild shit that is like a little band of shit that's phases out of is backwards.
Yeah, I'm going to make it really simple for you to see what that does.
Show me that real simple. I mean, I get it, but
it's like that's so weird.
I don't know how to explain it. It's not named correctly. Like an all pass filter, it's not the right.
Well, it lets everything pass, but crossover points change phase.
All right, ready?
But it lets everything pass.
Yeah.
So all
on the bottom graph is your RTA. The top graph is your phase, right? So right now the RTA is perfectly flat, and the phase is also perfectly flat. If we turn on a high pass filter and we set it at 80 hertz on the RTA, this is what happens. You've seen this before. You're familiar with this,
right?
Okay. On the phase graph, what it does is it creates a wrap. The wrap happens right at the crossover. So 80 hertz, it basically wraps downward and then comes back up, right? If we were to change this to an 80 hertz high pass filter, or I'm sorry, low pass filter, now it's an 80 hertz low pass filter. And then we also have the same wrap, right? It created a wrap. So what do you think an all pass filter does? It just creates a wrap with no
creates a wrap without changing anything to the sound.
So that's exactly the same. If I were to take this high pass filter on this one and I set this one at 80 hertz, it's exactly the same as an all pass filter, but without the frequency change.
Oh.
So if you turn on an all pass filter with just the speaker playing with the all pass filter, you can't hear it. It makes no change to the sound.
But if there was an identical speaker also playing the same thing, and you turned on that all pass filter, they would sound
one
like
speaker.
shit.
Yeah, well, it may fix a phase issue. So like in my truck, my left to right mid bass
scenario, I think.
My left to right mid bass, there's a 540 hertz phase issue just because of the geometry of the truck. And normally, before Max, you could find it, but it was much harder to find. And then, before learning this, I wouldn't know how to fix that. So at 540 hertz, my mid basses are out of phase. They're just not. There's nothing here.
A quick question regarding that Matt can probably answer is if the speakers in your doors, right? You go, I have this phase issue. If you angled them differently, did that change that shit at all, or is that just a vehicle thing? If the drivers are right in the same spot, we just change their angle, we aim them more towards the vehicle, to the passenger.
It may towards passenger may not be the answer, but yes, aiming and the install absolutely matters. So
I see.
Well, it changes access, it changes time.
It depends on the size, the frequencies that the speaker's playing. A tweeter will make a drastic difference by just changing the angle. Yes, but a subwoofer will make there will be very little difference when you turn it. And you'll have more of a difference from the transfer function of the vehicle than you will, the arrival time.
Right. So I got new tweeters. Putting these in probably tomorrow. Play with them. I also got 3D printed angled rings.
Oh, cool! I was supposed to make those for you, and I didn't. I'm glad you got them done. Otherwise,
all right. So the tweeters will mount into there, and then that's a 5-degree angle. I'll be able to change the angle of the tweeter in the pillar bit by bit and find the optimal angle in the truck using Max to see where is the best angle for these tweeters in the truck.
So regarding your question, Bobby, if you had two identical speakers, a left and a right, both playing the same thing, right? So here's number one and here's number two. One is red, two is gray. If we sum those two things together, then we end up with yellow, which is 6 dB higher, right? Okay. Simple. You sum the two channels, they're identical, you get a 6 dB gain. So if you were to put an all-pass filter on, say at 200 hertz on just one channel, if we put an all-pass filter at 200 hertz, here's what your response would be. You'd have no problems in the low frequency, big problem at 200 hertz, no problem above that. So what you would hear is a big null at 200 hertz.
Yeah.
And obviously you can tighten you narrow or widen the effects of the all-pass filter just like you could with a EQ thing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I guess next lesson we'll learn how to find those frequencies in a vehicle that are, what's struggling and where to add those. Maybe that's something I can get on the phone with Drew or something tomorrow while we're tinkering with the Jeep, and maybe we can see if we have any of those issues in the Jeep, and we might be able to alleviate them. So yeah,
just using the targets will greatly help with that, because like I said, capture the sub, capture the other speaker, play them together. That'll tell you right away if there's any cancellation in that area. So
awesome. Well, right on. Very cool.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. It was nice to meet you, and hopefully see you in person soon.
You as well. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you guys.
So I know I talked to y'all about going to the next sound quality seminar, guys. I don't know how full it is. I can reach out to Mark tomorrow. I think it might be pretty full, but if it's not, Matt will be at the next one as well.
When is the next one?
February 18th.
It's on a weekend, right? And it's in Oklahoma.
Send me that information.
Okay.
Drew.
You know, maybe if we did something where we made a few days out of it, like you were saying, Bobby, maybe we could do
kicker,
and then if all three of us are still together, we could do a show Wednesday together in person, and then
I don't think I can make it all the way to Wednesday. That'd be really tough.
Or here,
it's
just all go to Bobby's and just hang out with him.
Yeah,
on Wednesday.
Be handing y'all some sandpaper and shit. There you go, sand that.
I want to play the CNC.
Y'all crazy. Yeah. All right, boys. Have a nice night. I'm gonna go to the bar.
Thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure to meet you. I'm looking forward to having you on again. We learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else did. If they didn't, then fuck them. And you guys are awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, Andy. Every time I go to the Advanced Sound Quality Seminar in Bixby, I go to Kicker the next Monday.
And Bobby, you have not been there yet, right?
I have not been to Kicker.
Oh my God!
Okay,
Brandon has not been to Kicker either, and that is actually part of the reason I'm going to next ASQS was Steve Irby invited us to dinner at his place, and I couldn't say no to that because what a blessing.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right, guys. Have a nice night. Guys. We'll see y'all next week.